Alright, this is a quick guide to writing a text response essay. Okay, what is a text response essay? The purpose of a text response essay is for you to show your understanding of the author's intentions behind the text. So in class we've been talking a lot about what Fitzgerald is trying to do, what he's trying to show us. That's because of this, because we're trying to look at what he is intending behind the text as opposed to just what we think. So in other words, what is the author trying to communicate to us? What does the author want us to think? So we're trying to get into the head. We're trying to put ourselves in the shoes of the author. What does he or she want us to think about the characters, about a certain idea? What about the themes that all of us can relate to? And also, how has the author done this? So we might have an idea of what, let's say, Fitzgerald wants to show us about Gatsby, or show us about dreams, or show us about materialism. But we also need to think about how he's done that. How has he used the characters? How has he used language? How has he used the setting? How has he used the structure of the novel as well? So in order to do that, you need to provide an evidence-based perspective. Again, like I've been saying in class, I really don't mind there isn't really a right answer, so to speak. There are more correct answers than others. Obviously, you could hit the ball really left field and come up with some really wild theory, which might not necessarily be even in the ballpark, but your perspective nonetheless needs to be evidence-based. Can you support what you're saying with the text? Which is why I've tried to teach you the skill of close analysis, right? Which really comes in handy here because it really helps you to dig deep into what the author might be trying to do. So how do you structure a text response essay? This is the basic structure in a visual sense. You start off with an introduction. You have at least 3 body paragraphs, 3 or 4, and then you have a conclusion. Right? The introduction, as you would know, introduces your contention and your main points or reasons. Each body paragraph corresponds to one of your supporting points or reasons. Okay, and your conclusion sums everything up and tells us ultimately what you have, I guess, proven, or what is clearly shown through your essay. Okay, let's talk about step 1, which some of us have already done in class. So the step 1 is to break down the question to understand what is being asked of you. So step 1 is all about understanding the topic or the question, and also establishing a framework that you can use for your essay. Okay, so the one that we've done in class is J. Gatsby is portrayed by Fitzgerald as great, and to what extent do you agree? So the words that are in blue are the topic terms, or the ones that you need to define in order to understand the topic itself, whereas in the red are the action terms, the terms that help us to understand what we need to do in the essay. Okay, so I picked out these as the ones you need to define and make sure you're clear about before you start. It's always helpful to rewrite the question in your own words just to 100% clarify what you're being asked to do. After that, you should write a contention. So what is the main idea that you want to get across to your readers? What is the main thing that your reader should come away thinking or believing after reading your essay? And what are 3 or 4 arguments that you can provide which support your main idea? So another word for arguments will be points or reasons that support your contention. When you're planning this out, you may choose to come up with your arguments first, because ultimately they support your contention. So coming up with them first might actually give you a better idea of what your contention is. It can be hard to come up with a contention just off the top of your head. Alright, let's talk about step 2, which is your introduction. So in your introduction, there are 3 main things you have to do. Briefly introduce the topic, clearly state your contention, and provide an overview of your 3 or 4 main discussion points. An example would be the following for the essay prompt in the previous slide. So, J. Gatsby, the protagonist of The Great Gatsby, is a complex character who we can admire but also pity at times. So that introduces the topic because it includes J. Gatsby, the main character who's being discussed. and also this idea of, well, we have to make a judgment about him. Okay, we can admire him, but also pity him. And my contention is that F. Scott Fitzgerald depicts Gatsby as a hardworking and dedicated optimist, but also so completely consumed by his goals that he is completely out of touch with reality. Probably shouldn't repeat completely twice, but you get the idea, right? I've got a really clear contention there, which really, hopefully with a lot of clarity, explains the main idea I want to get across to my reader. And everything else in black are my supporting points, supporting reasons. Okay, so once you've got your introduction down, you need to move on to your body paragraphs. So the aim of your body paragraph is to explain in more detail one of your supporting points or reasons. Okay, so if you have 3 supporting points or reasons, you should have 3 body paragraphs. The basic principles, not necessarily rigid structure, in your body paragraphs is to begin with an assertive topic sentence that shows what you will discuss. Also has to be related to the topic, of course. You have to use evidence to support your point or reason because you need to provide an evidence-based argument. And your analysis is actually explaining how the evidence does so. So, like I explained in class, it's kind of like a courtroom situation where you're trying to prove something. You don't just show people evidence, but you also explain how that evidence proves your point. That's what you need to do here. And also, you need to always link your paragraph back to your contention at the end of your paragraph, just to make sure that the audience is clear about why your points are relevant, why your evidence is relevant, how it supports your point. So this is an example from a different prompt. What impression does Fitzgerald give us of East Egg and the people who live there? We've covered this, or parts of this paragraph in class, okay, but I just wanted to color code those parts so that we could see what's going on there. Alright, although East Egg is clearly for the powerful and dominant class in society, Tom Buchanan also shows us that it is merely a front for the permanent emptiness felt by those who live there. So it's a really strong topic sentence that I hope clearly describes what I'm going to be talking about in the paragraph. The dark blue is the evidence that I'm using. Okay, Tom's dominant personality is reflected in his physical features such as hard mouth, shining arrogant eyes, and cruel body. Notice there I haven't used long sentences or huge slabs of text. You only really need specific words or phrases, which also helps you to memorize those better. And the light blue is me explaining how the evidence supports my point. This description paints him as someone intimidating who exercises power over people. So that light blue section explains how the evidence supports my point that Tom is powerful and dominant. And the same thing happens below. Okay, Nick describes the football game that Tom wants to go back to as irrecoverable, and that Tom will be seeking it forever. And I explained that this suggests to us that Tom's deepest desires will never be met despite his longing. Okay, so that supports my idea in the topic sentence that Tom has this permanent emptiness. Alright, and the last thing is your conclusion. So in your conclusion, you need to briefly summarize your arguments, explain what the reader of your essay should think or believe after reading your essay. And you can use phrases or words like therefore, thus, it is clear that, ultimately, Fitzgerald aims to. I haven't included an example of conclusion here because I think it should be pretty straightforward. You just need to summarize and make one last assertion at the end about what the reader of your essay should think or believe. Here are some tips that you should try and remember. So use short phrases or words as evidence, not sentences or slabs of text unless it's totally necessary. That helps you to memorize those quotes or that evidence. It also makes it a bit easier to slot it into your essay rather than just a whole huge chunk. Please don't use first person, so don't use the pronoun I, like I believe that. It's actually quite easy to avoid doing this. You just literally just take it out. So for example, I believe that Fitzgerald portrays Tom as having a dominant exterior but is lost on the inside. You could easily fix that by just taking out the I believe that. Okay, and just saying that Fitzgerald portrays Tom as so on and so forth. And please don't use examples from outside of the text. The thing about a text response is that you're responding to the text. So you should try as much as possible to stay within the world of the text. Don't go beyond it. Be reasonable, of course, but try not to go beyond it. Don't use examples from beyond the text itself. Okay, hope that was helpful, and good luck with your essay.